here's Danny Enriquez.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to El Big League Show. My name is Danny Enriquez. I am here with former MLB executive, two-time World Series champ Adrian Lorenzo. And this is what we always talk about, all the minutia for, all the little details, is to build a team to get to this point, playing this time of the year. And it's funny, we were here with Nick Martinez, you know, one of the better veteran pitchers in the game right now in terms of what he does, and such a cerebral dude. And we were talking about the Dodgers and how they go deep into counts and create so many problems for pitchers. And he said, listen, don't sleep on the Blue Jays. And he said the Blue Jays were going to beat the Mariners. And basically, every time we try to talk about, you know, the Dodgers and just how hard they are as a lineup, mention the Blue Jays. Now you see the Blue Jays here on this stage going against the mighty Dodgers. And man, that offense and the way that they attack the game is extremely impressive.
It's I think the consistent story is we continue to sleep on the Blue Jays overall as maybe as the baseball industry, but I don't know why, right? Like it's something about maybe being hidden in Toronto, maybe being hidden in Canada a little bit, but for whatever reason they got discounted or forgotten relative to the other names in this grouping. But at the end of the day, there were at least a top 7 offensive team all the way throughout the year, and the best by wide margins defensive club with positive base running markers too. So it really shouldn't surprise us that we're here. I think the surprise is punching the Dodgers in the face game 1 the way that they did. Although we're watching highlights of this game right now, and this game was a lot closer than what the ultimate score. Game 1,
we're seeing the breakdown right now. It's the inning that will live in infamy here.
Collapsing because the Dalton Varsho at bat is probably the most impressive one to take. Snell, who was in the bottom of the 6th, no outs, first and second, and it's a left-on-left matchup. Shouldn't be a good one for Varsho. He fights off a bunch of pitches, and then clicks him foul first, right? And then the absolute no-doubter. Oh, no, this is the hit by pitch.
It is hit by pitch, but even in this at-bat, you see there were a few of those with 2 strikes that could have easily been that punch-out, and he was able to stay alive.
Right. I was confusing the at-bats.
But those are some good pitches that he was able to fall off. Maybe kind of setting the stage, plus with that foul that he crushed.
The point I was making is that Snell was through 6 no-run baseball when he got pulled. So the ultimate score of this game didn't really dictate how it went. And then Ernie Clement, who's come up huge in every situation. He's been one of their best offensive contributors, despite being their poorest offensive contributor over the course of the season, right? But puts the ball in play, makes good swing decisions. You can put yourself in a good position to impact the baseball game because they're trying to prioritize getting to the bottom of the lineup. They'd rather face something other than the meat of the order. So somebody's got to get pitched to in this entire dynamic. And then it just comes down to, do you capitalize on the pitches that you get? And if you have a high degree of barrel manipulation and barrel ability, like, you're going to get some pitches to hit, especially in traffic situations. Because the most embarrassing thing or the worst thing in playoff baseball is this, right? Like we're watching the Sheehan bases loaded walk to put Toronto up, right? Which sets up this entire huge inning.
Which the Dodgers were able to get going last series, as far as when you know, that was probably the pivotal moment of that series.
Correct. So I think we've been sleeping on the Blue Jays. I think that's the theme, right? Like every 1 through 9 in the lineup, they're getting big contributions from everybody offensively as well. High contact lineup again, puts yourself in good positions to put the ball in play. And when you have traffic on the bases and everybody's a little tighter, right? Like this is the strength is not for the Dodgers has not been their bullpen this year. Outside of Sasaki and Vesia, it's kind of been a few rough spots for them. So they had to dig into a part of their bullpen that is not their win formula, like finish the game, assignment here. And when your command isn't there and you got to put balls over the plate, you put yourself in a position to, against a good lineup, to really be down early. And this is why traffic is crucial and critical in the postseason. People were talking Ohtani wasn't making a contribution because he wasn't hitting for average, right? But you look at the box score, he's getting on base a few times. What traffic and base runners do in the postseason, I think, is underrated. That's why it's so
Oof.
Just watching the Addison Barger pinch hit grand slam. I think it's the first time this ever happened. That guy doesn't get cheated, man. I love that swing. He makes good decisions, and he also it's a violent explosion. He's got it. Let's see where he's at in terms of bat speed in the league.
It was. We looked at it when we did the Blue Jays episode. It was in the high 90s. Just looking at that at bat. Yeah, the Dalton Varsho home run that we were talking about was earlier, actually, before the at bat we watched. Where even the at bat we watched, he was able to crush one that just went foul.
Yeah,
a lot of lefty big at bats in this particular game as we watch. Of course, Barger, grand slam off of Banda. So, you as a left-handed hitter, just when you watch these lefty at bats, which proved pivotal here as Toronto took game one. I mean, what's the key to getting that kind of pop against a good lefty like these guys are facing? These balls were crushed.
I think it comes down to like making a good swing decision. Again, I know it must be nauseating to hear me say the same term, repeat the same terminology, but to me, it's the most relevant offensive component in all of baseball right now, because when you're able to narrow down pitches to which you get off your A swing, to which you get off your better swings, and you narrow that into a zone and pick the right pitch, you only need to put barrel on ball one time in an at bat. So even if the odds are against you, it's not a good matchup for me. Left on left is traditionally bad. The fastball's still coming over the plate. So if you could narrow down and be accurate enough with your barrel and accurate enough with your thinking in terms of what to time up, or you're just a good read and react fastball hitter, those are the kinds of things that can allow you to have good performance in these situations, especially like the left on left. Like, yes, predominantly that will work against you, but in the playoff, it's truly pitch to pitch. So if you have the ability to turn the page and just get to a fastball, time up a fastball in the zone that you want it, you put yourself in a better spot. And some guys don't really have a split. Like, yes, they're left-handed facing a lefty, but because of the way they see the ball, because of the way they make decisions, it's not that much of a swing to where you're so much higher of an out percentage by being in a left on left matchup versus left versus right. The percentages play in the favor of always. That's why managers try to match up left versus left and right versus right, because it is inherently more difficult, and the percentages play that out.
Shout out to Yasser in the chat live from the Canary Islands. One thing I can't help but notice with both of these teams, particularly, as we record this, getting ready for game 3, the catchers have made such a big impact on the series. They're such important parts of their team. They're not just catchers. They are some of the best catchers in the league, and they're leading some of obviously the 2 top teams in the league right now. So how important do you see that catcher position for both the Dodgers and the Blue Jays?
I think it's of premium importance, and I think this is not something new. It's getting a little more, perhaps a little more spotlighted in this series, or having Cal Raleigh involved in the last one. Alejandro Kirk he's a beast. I love Alejandro Kirk, and Will Smith is a sneaky, has been the MVP of the postseason for them, just in terms of reliability of at bat and big run situation. But what stands out to me, at least with Will Smith, right? Like the ability to manage the entire game, right? And only like Blake Snell is able to call his own pitches, but that's because of a high level plan in conjunction with Will Smith as well. And Snell is an elite level preparer. But anybody who's won postseason games can properly place the right amount of value on the catcher position, winning any game, but especially winning postseason games, especially winning series, especially having relievers come into the game that, their command isn't there, or they got the deer in the headlights look in the postseason for the first time. The catcher position brings it all together. And if and when they do provide offensively, like these 2 catchers do, I think if you have a producing catcher, especially on both sides of the ball, you can start with a defensive anchor. You can win with a defensive anchor. If that guy is a defensive anchor and an offensive contributor at a high level, that to me is usually an indicator that you have a pretty good team. Just because of that catching position touches every pitcher. It affects your position player as well, obviously. So you're in the lineup. They're just, to me, they tie it all together in a way that, it doesn't surprise me that it's getting put at a premium right now, but it's nothing new. Like, I think catching has been appropriately identified as a needle mover in postseason baseball and baseball across.
And who are the final 4 teams? Right. anything less than an all-star catcher in that
Right.
group. I don't see it. I mean, talking about MVP caliber guy in the case of Riley. I mean, honestly, Will Smith, how far away is he from that level? I mean, you're talking about one of this. Is it fair to call him a superstar of the game? I know he had some injuries this year, but just with how valuable he is as a hitter.
I think it's unquestionable that he's a superstar of the game, right? But he's one of those classic underappreciated superstars that we forget how good he's been for so long. And he also doesn't have like the huge outward numbers that give you like eye-popping numbers. Even though I remember when I was looking at him in the systems that I was working in, the internal databases, they identify all the things this guy does really well, like elite level receiving, really, really good swing decisions. So it's made sense why he's been as good as he's been. But I think he gets less notoriety, especially on his own roster, given the list of names there. But I think Cal Raleigh's obviously had the elite level year, the outlier year, but I don't know that I could just select him over Will Smith if I'm going into a postseason matchup. One guy is having a great moment and is looking like he's going to have moments for a long time. And the other guy has rings and has every Dodger team that you remember being good has Will Smith as a catcher.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of good teams in that mix, even though there's what, 2 championships in that?
And a lot of great players kind of in and out.
Right. And pretty consistent theme throughout is Will Smith. So I think internally I'll bet they love him.
Has there been like an extended run with multiple championships, multiple World Series appearances that didn't have like the switch catchers? I'm sure I'm forgetting a few, but it feels like when you think about, the Giants and you think about, of course, the Yankees when they were really rolling, the Dodgers now. I mean, it feels like, man, you kind of need that. Maybe the Astros, I guess, or the Maldonado was pretty important for what they were doing. But it's like, feels like when these teams go on these extended runs, that catcher, that all-star level catcher is the rock of the whole thing.
Yeah. Well, I think it's hard enough to get one of them. So the odds that you have 2 sitting on your roster, I think it's just you're playing odds there,
right. Or like a replacement, like, hey, we can win without this player,
right? And
then we replace him, and it's no problem.
What I did see was the 2018 Red Sox, for example, that I watched pretty closely, and it was Christian Vasquez. Yet Sandy Leon would catch Chris Sale because they just had a really good rhythm and a really good thing going. It wasn't taking anything away from Vasquez, who was outstanding throughout and like a stable anchor. But they had, that I could remember, more like not even distribution, but probably like 60-40. And it also allowed them to do things like pinch hit and defensive replace late. It opens up some options for you if you also trust the second guy and if he can get worked into the mix quite a bit. I remember any roster Stephen Vogt was on, he would function as like that extra catcher or that backup catcher, but he'd have an offensive purpose as well. So I think that's the last one I remember seeing. I saw it be pretty effective. And it's usually because that number 2 guy is a defensive, kind of elite defensively, where you might be trying to stack offense into your starter. And then to finish a game or for defensive emergency purposes, you have a higher level defender. But in this series, we're watching guys who can do both, right? And I wouldn't have had this for Kirk, for example, to be this good defensively across the board. He was always an underlying pretty good receiver. Like, so even like you look at him, it doesn't pass the eye test when you're looking at him, especially in minor league video. Just a short, stubby dude with a good swing, but like, you don't know if that's going to project. Like, you don't know how he's going to stay at catcher, but he can always receive pretty good. So always put up pretty good receiving numbers, but I've been pleasantly surprised by his ability to just be a complete catcher as we watch Will Smith hit the go-ahead homer in the 7th in game 2. Yeah, this was like talking about Will Smith.
There's really a difference in the game, right?
Yeah.
I mean, really both games when that starter runs out of steam, because Blake Snell was pitching phenomenal.
Yep.
Gausman, same thing. But when it left, it left. And
look at this decision right here. Look at this. Look at he hits it a long way. All right. Let's see. He hits it a long way. Poolside fastball, 95 miles an hour. All right, let's see what count he was in. Because this flipped the whole game. Right? Top of the 7th, 3-2 count. 95 in a little bit off the plate, pulled his hands inside, and kept it just fair enough. That to me is getting yourself into a count where you can narrow what's going to happen. Because he was on that fastball. That's middle in, on the hands, off the plate. You're not supposed to, like, if you catch that, like you hit it foul, you roll it over, but to catch it with the barrel the way he did there, to me, he was locked in on a fastball anywhere middle in, and he got it, and Gausman was locked in up until that point.
Rolling.
They were like, it was a true pitching duel right up until it got away from them.
Yeah, it seems that's been the story here. Just again, these are really the pitchers have come to play. All 4 starters I thought have had their moments. It's just about, kind of when it leaves. And for the other guy in this matchup, didn't leave at all, which was a Yamamoto. I mean, he had 173 innings this year, so he showed he could be durable. He's not somebody that I would have been my pick to have a complete game in the World Series going into the year. Not because he didn't have the stuff or the capability, the talent, but just, you wondered about his durability. He's not the biggest guy in the world,
right?
But this was the story of the game, obviously, and the overall leap he's taken. Where does he rank right now in the major leagues when you talk about? I mean, there's so many great pitchers in the game, some dominant lefties, but what he does and his ability to do it at this level against the lineup that we talked about is just gives so many people so many problems. How good is he?
Well, Junior, we can flash to the screen 4 here because I like this page obviously from Baseball Savant, but it tells you pitching run value, fastball run value. So it's all the way to in the 99th percentile. So to your question, just how good is he? Well, his pitches grade out as being in the 99th percentile overall total pitching run value. And if you lock in on the fastball run value, that one's interesting too because it's isolating out the fastball itself. So this is saying that this plays like the best. Well, there might be one or two other guys that play in the 100th percentile, but he's in the 99th percentile of fastball. Just isolating fastballs. If every pitcher only threw fastball, he's got the number 1 or number 2, number 3 fastball in all of baseball from 5'10", 176, and from an average velo of 95. So it's not like he's not getting there through velocity alone. So when you try to get, all right, what is he, what's making him effective? Because you can't just look at him and be like, oh, he's 99 to 101. He can put it wherever he wants. Right. And, he can throw it anywhere in the zone and that's going to play good. So for some guys that works, but it doesn't equal elite results. He's doing something different. And it's not simply explained by a high spin rate because he's got let's call it like a plus, but not elite spin rate. So spin rate doesn't explain everything in terms of like the four seam quality because he's a primarily four seam dominant fastball pitcher. Uses a sinker 7% of the time versus 36% four seam fastball. So he's what you would call a true vertical fastball pitcher. Like the goal is for him to get above the bats. And he can do that because of something we don't talk about too often, which is release height. He's got really good explosive riding characteristics of the fastball with some pretty good spin, is able to keep it from having too much horizontal movement. So getting that arm side run. So it holds its plane in a really true fashion from a low slot. So it gives the hitter the impression that it's coming, kind of like up shooting you, which is always like that. It's why Jenny Finch was really dominant, that rising pitch.
Yeah.
Just to get above, it's hard to get on top of that pitch and to square that pitch up. It's also hard to throw it for a strike. So part of that fastball run value overall is command. This guy doesn't walk anybody. He misses bats. He doesn't walk anybody, and he's in the 91st percentile in ground balls.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. The combination of K rate and the ground ball percentage. I mean, that's it. That's
all the outcomes. If you limit your walks and you don't do free passes, he's in the 40th percentile in walks, but he's missing so many bats that it doesn't matter. But I think the driver of all of this is that four-seam explosive fastball. I think he's just a model of today's modern game, especially in the shape of the Japanese pitcher. It's a four-seam explosive rider to the top with a devastating splitter as well, but true access to the entire arsenal. Look at those four-seam 36%, split finger 25%, curveball 18%, which I think has been in key moments, he's gone to that curveball, especially in a couple matchups, that one matchup against Vlad Guerrero Jr., where Vlad hadn't swung and missed pretty much the whole. I think he had 6 homers and 7 strikeouts at one point. And in a bases loaded 1-out situation, got him to look fooled on a curveball because he does have that. It's got that. The hitters have to kind of it's got enough height to where you kind of buckle at it a little bit. But really the true kind of if he wants miss, he can go to the slider as well. But it's that curveball has also opened up that. He's a vertical attacker with the fastball, but can also move you front and back on the plate with the curveball and the splitter. So he's a timing offsetter as well. And everything just comes out of that nice, same low-angled slot. He does a really good job repeating the delivery. And there's a little bit of like pause. Like he holds the pause on his when he's stepping back into his windup. And I think he varies that pause. So he has all the things going. He commands it well. He has a deceptive fastball. He's got an elite splitter because the off-speed run value is 98% as well. So that's telling you it's up there with the best true splitters in the game. And that one is a little more movement doesn't always indicate effectiveness of a split finger or a changeup. It's so heavily dependent on how it tunnels off your other pitches, how it velo separates from your other pitches. So true movement doesn't indicate good pitch for a splitter. It has to be buoyed by some of this other stuff. I think Tommy Kahnle's the only guy who can get away with throwing only changeups because he's got that movement and he throws it hard. But other than that, every other split finger or changeup dependent pitcher is dependent on the fastball as well, or some other pitch, usually the fastball.
Yeah, it's called the changeup, right?
Right, to get the separation. And his is literally, it's the master class in doing this, but I don't know how much is true movement of the pitch or how good your fastball deception is that it plays up the quality of your splitter. Koji Uehara made a lot of money and got a lot of saves throwing 84, 85 miles an hour because of that split, because of that change in pace. And I'm seeing shades of that, right? Or remembering that era and seeing that pitch be so effective on its own, and then kind of joining that with an elite level fastball, and you're getting elite level major league results. But also attacking early in counts, keeping pitch counts really in check into like, yeah, he threw complete games. When you looked at him in the 7th inning and he had 72 pitches, you're like, oh.
After a kind of rough start, it wasn't like smooth sailing right from the start.
It was like a 16, 17 pitch first inning, and then cruise through the rest of the game. But I said this in the last episode. You want guys to be looking their best at this part of the year. He's looking his best. He's got 2 complete games in the postseason, right when you need it the most. Right when you just took a hook to the face in game 1, to have this guy do this in game 2 under the brightest of lights. This is one of the best in the game. And I think if you had one game to win right now in Major League Baseball, you could pick him with a straight face and not really be like, nobody should be questioning that too much because he's got the results on his side.
Yeah. And like you said, that, it's not his first time doing this in this playoffs. And it's like the question going in was just all the durability stuff, the size. And I think those questions have been answered pretty emphatically. Yep. Real quick before we get off Yamamoto, because we talked about a lot. Now he's kind of having this moment, but we brought in Lewis Brinson. He talked about facing him in Japan and all that. Just the actual biomechanics of the way he throws from a hitter's perspective. It's just like from a fan perspective, sitting there and watching it. If you put 105 on the radar, I'd believe it just because it looks so explosive coming off his hand visually. Like from a hitter's perspective, the way he throws as a shorter player, how does that affect everything?
I think the low release height and explosive characteristics to the fastball and kind of a lull you to sleep, get into it. I think all of those things contribute. But I think he's one of those pitchers that you would, as an evaluator, if you didn't have access to TrackMan data, he'd probably regularly be making guys look late on the fastball, despite not registering it with like elite level velocities. And I think anytime you see that, there's how the fastball looks on the radar gun, and then there's how it actually plays. Mm-hmm. To me, he can throw, he's throwing a cutter there at 93, but he can be a 95 mile an hour fastball can beat you, making it look like it was 101. Sometimes you can see as an evaluator in the stands. Like if you really lock in on, okay, how are guys seeing or getting on his fastball? And I would bet that through all those Japanese years, he's probably just a highlight reel of making guys late to that mid 90s up in the zone fastball.
Yep.
That to me tells me he's always had that thing that we now categorize as ride. We didn't used to talk about it as ride or holding plane and things like that, ride and cut in the zone. We used to be like, oh, that fastball gets by guys, gets on guys. I bet Pedro looked like he had an explosive fastball in this way. Roger Clemens to me was a classic ride guy as well. That stiff four-seamer up.
Josh Beckett.
Josh Beckett would have been a great one, I think. I'd be interested to retroactively apply TrackMan data and overlap it with how we view that data now, I bet a lot of the best guys they fall in the category of four-seam ride guys. I bet Randy Johnson would have been elite in this category.
And then we just saw the at-bat with Vladdy, and then once again, the curveball going the other way.
And that's in a 3-2 count, right? To land a curveball down in the zone, perfectly executed pitch in a 3-2 count. That's not what you were expecting to see in a 3-2 count. But he's got that kind of pitchability, that true any pitch, any count. That's showing it, in my opinion. 3-2, I'm in a tough spot where I need to get a strike. I can still throw a breaking ball and land it exactly where I want it. Dropped it into a bucket against Varsho, who's been a problem for the Dodgers. So, but again, Gausman was really good too, man. He was really good through that whole start.
I mean, really starting pitching for this. Oh, let's talk about this actually before I get into this, because I was going to ask you about this, and now we just saw it. So, yeah, Freddie Freeman, one of the best players of our era here, losing the pop-up.
Yeah, that is the least Freddie Freeman style move that I could remember seeing defensively.
When Vladdy it was a foul, but Vladdy almost missed one that he ended up catching, but he landed on his back.
The nature of playing with the dome or those roofs, like those things are pretty old at this point. I remember in Tampa Bay, we'd play with the Red Sox. I'd play the Rays a lot, so we'd travel there and shag BP there. And there were balls where you lose it. Like if you don't track it off the bat and you expect to pick it up in the air, we got a good friend of mine, Robbie Perez, in here who played outfield with me. You know that worst feeling. There's no worse feeling than when it goes up and you don't see it. But this doesn't look like that. This just looks like it got lost in I don't know, the myriad of things that are up on that catwalk. Freddie Freeman doesn't make that mistake. Look at Mookie Betts, man.
Yeah.
Backhanded sliding play, backhanded 6-3, pops up, accurate throw through with complete confidence. His ability to play shortstop at this level. You and I were talking about it before the show. Like, how is that possible that he's able to do this? And I think you don't just learn to play shortstop. I think he's able to do this because let's not forget that he was drafted as a shortstop, played shortstop. He was probably the best player on every team he was on. And you put that guy at shortstop. So his ability to have that been his natural position is the reason you're able to go back to it. I think we're not seeing natural third baseman or second baseman jump in and learn to play short. That's what I think we're not seeing.
They went Mookie, and look how hard this ball was off the wall for Vladdy Guerrero.
One of the few times Yamamoto got in this game.
What a single.
So
the thing that's crazy to me about Mookie Betts this year, he's 32 years old. Would it be crazy to say that his defense has been almost as valuable as his offense? I mean, for a guy like Mookie Betts, who's been such an elite offensive player, sounds kind of crazy to say, but that's how it felt. Now I just pulled up the WAR. This is not the Bible, but 3.2 offensive WAR, 2.6 defensive WAR, which led the league. It feels like he's just getting even more complete with age.
It's kind of ridiculous, and it's an interesting approach because usually it flips in the direction of you being a little more offensively driven because your body's grinding down,
especially at that spot.
Especially at that spot. And his year has normalized a little bit offensively, but to me, it's ultimate Mookie Betts, like finding a way to still be, as Freddie Freeman goes, oh no, not in this one. Finding a way to be the most valuable version of himself to the Los Angeles Dodgers. And you watch any one of these games, like if we're talking about Will Smith being in the heart of every big moment, Mookie Betts is there. He's in the vicinity of something happening. Even back in that World Series play, Anthony Rizzo, little dribbler to first base. Garrett Cole forgets to cover first base.
Oh, yeah.
Like, who's that running, right? Like, it's Mookie Betts making a hustle play down to first and then change the whole trajectory of that series. And that backhanded sliding play that he made there in that moment, it stands out as one. There's another one of those moments. Last week, we talked about an at-bat that resulted in an RBI walk against Yohan Duran earlier in that series. It's constantly littered with moments. Their entire season is. This year, it just looks a little more defensive, this to me tells me he has staying power in this game well into his late 30s years.
Yeah.
Because that would also play, in my opinion, if he lost a step and all of a sudden you needed to play third, I think that plays good too. Your hands play, your arm plays, so you have staying power there and ability to contribute there. Second base, I think it's well established. He could pivot to that role. I think guys go into the corner outfield positions as they get older. I think he'll always be above average to elite at a corner if you wanted to. But to me, he's going to finish out his career as a shortstop because the way he does it, I think, is it's not lateral quickness dependent. It's aided by lateral quickness. Don't get me wrong. It's good that he's still laterally quick, but I don't think it's dependent on it. For example, Miggy Rowe, who's on this team, and I think Mookie was talking about like the benefits of having Miguel Rojas be the backup as he's playing this role or playing shortstop. There are ways to position yourself, and there are just ways to leverage your instincts to not have to be dependent on foot speed, true foot speed, to cover range and to make out conversions as a shortstop.
36 years old, Miguel Rojas.
There you go. And he still grades out. I think he's going to get a utility. He's nominated as one of the utility guys for the Gold Glove. So they might have both their shortstops win Gold Gloves, in 1 year. And I think it shows you that position is prioritized for them. But back to what I was saying, like you can have a career like Derek Jeter, for example, not a burner, but a good cover conversion of outs and still create range by lacking the foot speed that you might have had earlier, their lateral quickness. But lateral quickness, it's like velocity. It always helps, It always helps.
Absolutely.
But instincts can really push that forward too.
Another instinctive guy that we're seeing that can help a lot of ways, Clement. We saw his bat here, not this particular game we're watching, but certainly in game one. I mean, what do you see with him? Another was a college shortstop. I guess Mookie was a high school shortstop, but guys that can play all over the diamond.
I think the value of those things really shows up in the postseason. The flexibility that you give yourself at any point in the game, because I think it's important to remember there are starting lineups, and then there are ways that you finish the game. Addison Barger coming into the game off the bench the other day changed the pinching grand slam. That's the best case scenario. But my point is you're looking at these games beyond just the starting lineup. So having that flexibility to you don't know when the leverage spots are going to come in or when the moment is going to be to make a move. So you having defensive positional versatility opens up your team's options of what they can do, right? And at this level, it's really, you're taking a bit of a gamble in the middle of a big league game to put somebody in at a different position than what they've been playing the whole season. So you have to feel such a high degree of comfort, like Kike. That's why I think what Kike does is kind of ridiculous. They'll put him at third and they'll put him in left, all in the same series or in the same game, just to be able to, all right, what's the best way to utilize our bench, or what's our best defensive alignment to finish this game? Because I can now put Kike at third, or I can put him in left, and I could put my best defensive finishing lineup because these guys have positional versatility. Yeah. And it allows you to get into a game offensively as well that you might not have business in being, right? Like if you're elite defensively, you don't start a game, but you get to finish a game, chances are you're going to get an important at-bat towards the end of that game that you're in, because they're not going to take you out again.
Right.
They're not going to pinch hit for you again.
Right.
So if those guys can capitalize on moments, Clement is not necessarily in this category because he's been a starter, but the value of that positional versatility really jumps out to me for him. But then he goes over there and plays elite level defensive third base for the best defensive team in baseball. He's one of their anchors. And to have that guy contribute offensively the way that he has, and it's not with slug. There's some slug in there, but it's really like just good quality, well hit, line drives, hard hit, low trajectory, hard hit ground balls that get through the infield. The guys that can put bat on baseball in the playoffs can get rewarded. Sometimes it goes the other way though. Sometimes that means like you roll into a few too many double plays. JP Crawford got into this the other day where they had him bunt in one of those situations because they were afraid of the rollover double play because he had just done it twice. So contact can work against you in the postseason too, and you create 2 outs instead of 1, especially against the quality of pitching that you see. And as Muncy, another guy that gets slept on. If you look through the run of Dodgers good teams, like Max Muncy is somewhere in those lineups along with Will Smith too. A guy that gets lost in that shuffle, but he's a constant in all that. And this is where I think postseason, it's hard to look at the Dodgers and not think that postseason experience matters. Yes, having good players matter, but guys that just really seem comfortable in the biggest of moments, especially offensive moments, and they're not setting the world on fire offensively in the postseason. Outside of Shohei's like big game the other day, it's a lot of like guys showing up in big moments, in the right moments.
Yep.
And that's Muncy here in the 7th inning of game 2. With the way Yamamoto was pitching, that 2-run lead, that 3-1 lead probably felt like 7-1. Just you didn't feel like you were gonna touch him. And I can set this guy's pitching highlights, like put a condensed game together and just watch all his pitches, and I think it's a master class in pitches. It's easy to say, but a lot harder to do.
Barger does everything full speed, man. It's crazy. I just watch his highlights. But with Muncy, I want to ask about him. Do you remember him as an amateur at all? I know he's been in the majors a long time, so I don't know how long you were kind of just starting, right, when he was in the upper minors. But like just that profile, it's like you don't look at him and think this guy is going to be a stalwart of one of the best runs we've seen in recent history. And I mean, 5'10", 215, doesn't look like Addison Barger as far as his strength.
5th round in 2012 out of Baylor, right? So the honest answer is I don't remember, but that's because it probably wasn't some. Let's see here. Decent career at Baylor. Nothing. I understand how he falls to the 5th round.
Yeah, nothing jumps out crazy.
Oakland draftee. Has some good years, including a 25 and 100 year in the Midwest League. Always got on base. Always made good swing decisions. Not a high strikeout guy. This is to me, it's a case of the Dodgers prioritizing a guy that makes really good decisions with a good enough left-handed swing and some power, and then from a development standpoint, identifying an undervalued asset and having him thrive and develop within an elite level system.
Yeah, looking at his last year at Baylor, 418 on base. 494 slug at that level is not going to blow you away, but 418 OBP. The year before that, 428. So, I mean, you can see what the A's liked in him for sure.
Interesting thing too, if you go back through the defensive game logs, it's littered with versatility too. First base, second base, third base, outfield, left field, right field, first base, third base, second base. So if you're a favorable left-handed offensive platoon split and you have positional versatility, you put yourself in a pretty good position in the Dodgers system to move up and have impact. But he played AAA with the Dodgers. Yeah, he broke into the big leagues with Oakland. So it's really a major league development story, major league AAA development story here with Muncy. But to me, I'd wager that this profile has always been pretty swing decision heavy with enough left-handed pop to justify any position that he played, including first base. I think you need to understand when you get categorized as a first baseman at times, the offensive threshold for you to maintain, even third base, is pretty high, and corner outfield, same. Like you don't see too many guys like Ernie Clement, for example, where the defense carries the profiles at third baseman. As a third baseman, you need to bang.
Yeah.
As a first baseman, you definitely need to hit. Left fielder, same thing. So it shows you that he's always done interesting offensive things despite having versatility, because the versatility that he has is a corner position, which has a high offensive threshold demand.
You see here Yamamoto as the game goes on.
Painted.
He was locked in. He smelled the finish line there.
Really well received by Will Smith there too. That shows up a lot too in the postseason, in my opinion. The way you present the baseball, people call it receiving. You can call it stealing strikes, but keeping strikes is equally important. And Will Smith is he's a master, man. He's a true, it just looks like what you would draw up and want to throw to, in my opinion. The Dodgers pitchers look clearly comfortable throwing to him. And he clearly makes that thing go over there, in my opinion. I might not be giving other guys enough credit, but there's something to the way he manages and catches a baseball game that I'm like, when I see the Dodgers win, I'm like, okay, that makes sense.
Well, we're watching Yamamoto here as he closes it out. Not the only ace-level pitcher the Dodgers have, of course. We saw what happened the first game with the bullpen. and that was not really a decision. It was just, I think Snell just kind of ran out of gas, but
got too deep into counts. The Blue Jays made him get deep into counts, whereas the Brewers were chasing him early, trying to get to him early. I think the Blue Jays let him eat into that pitch count a little bit. So by the 6th, he was out of pitches. And that's the game plan that I'll bet Pat Murphy would have wanted to execute against Snell. But Snell, and that's the difference, man. You throw strike one quickly, you can't wait him out. If you're not getting or executing early in strike 1 or 1-0 with a strike, you can get into deep counts against good lineups really fast. And deep counts mean deep pitch counts. So
that was not really a decision for the reasons you said. I mean, they got him out. But if we get to, I mean, think about like an Ohtani start, for example, where you got a lot of considerations you got to deal with beyond just your pitcher, right? Or, Glasnow, who himself, has not been the most durable guy in his career. When that decision comes where it truly is a decision, do we keep him in? Do we go to the pen? And you have such a disparity, at least on paper, in terms of the quality of your starters and the quality of your pen, or at least the current form of each.
Yeah.
I mean, where do you lean? And I understand everything's a game by game basis, but do you think that that Roberts is going to be, I don't know, aggressive in keeping his starters out there if he has the ability to do so?
I think so. I think Vesia not being available to them changes their entire utilization method, because he would come in every, seemingly didn't matter righty lefty, he's got that elite riding fastball as well. So that to me is them, like, a slept on name in all this too, and sneaky important for them in particular, because he's the bridge to their win equation in almost every situation. So that has to factor into the decision. But also guys' longevity and long-term, like, you don't want to lose Snell for the entire series if game 6 comes back around, game 7 comes back around. And so I don't think you could play with that. And I think you have to feel like you can get some innings, some outs in the middle of a game, rather than jeopardizing what I just referenced and losing him to injury, or putting him into pitch counts that are just not comfortable, especially against right-handed pockets of the lineup, which is what it looked like he was facing there. So I will bet that Blake Snell did not want to come out of that game, right? But also understanding why at that point in the game with that pitch count, I think it's a hard trigger to pull as a manager when you don't have too many options, but you can't just ride your starter into the 8th every game, and especially when he's run up a high pitch count. Yeah, no, that one, again, that decision was kind of, it's hard to think of it any other way. They weren't able to get it done. But I'm thinking, as let's say Ohtani's rolling, right? And it's like, man, this guy's rolling. You know how his competitive nature is and his kind of flair for the dramatic. Like, it's going to be some very interesting pitching decisions, I feel, in this series as we go forward for the Dodgers. And you got Sasaki. He pitched 3 innings against the Phillies in the DS. Yep. So is that something where you stretch him out to sort of bridge that gap? I've run him pretty hard since too.
Yeah.
So he's not exactly at the same usage level that he was then. The Dodgers have had a good amount of time off, so everybody's pretty well rested at this point. But you have run him to his relief limits, right? He's probably never been used as a reliever like this in this, he's only 23 years old, so he has not too many situations overall. But I don't envy the decisions that they have to make, but I do envy the guys that they can count on to put them in a position to make those decisions comfortably. And that's what I mean. Like, these starters, they have a good chance to go deeper into these games.
Right.
But I think what they're seeing here with the Blue Jays is it's not a lineup that's going to give you too many freebies. I thought the way Milwaukee did for the Dodgers to cut through them the way they did, got out in a lot of early counts. I say all that as Yamamoto shoves through, through this last inning, but it's objectively a more difficult lineup to cut through, that in terms of they get on base via the walk and they put a lot of balls in play. So this is truly good team versus good team, and truly best team versus best team. That's one thing I can say about this World Series. I feel like the best 2 teams made it to the end. And sometimes you see a team kind of get in there, but another team was clearly like the dominant team. They just didn't play well in that series. I feel like in this instance, we're truly seeing the best of what baseball has to offer on either side of the league.
And down to your point, the Toronto Blue Jays this year, second in terms of limiting their strikeouts, right? So second only to
second highest bat to ball team in baseball.
Second only to the Kansas City Royals in terms of strikeouts. On the pitching side, this is a Dodgers rotation that led the league in strikeouts, and that's with some health stuff along the way. 1,500 strikeouts on the season. So, like you said, best on best. That's it right here. So just going forward, I don't know when people are listening to this necessarily in terms of during the series, but just something you're watching the rest of the series in particular, having seen what you've seen. In our case, it's 2 games. What are you looking for the rest of the season? Rest of the series?
Glasnow. I'm going to have my eye on Glasnow. I think this thing hinges on it. If they get another start, like what he gave them out of, the last series, I think they, then you get back into Ohtani, Yamamoto, Snell. I think that's a lot of this hinges on his start. So I'll be able to better answer that question. And then the Blue Jays, they can always put up a crooked number, like a big crooked number quickly in one inning. Like in game 1, it got away from the Dodgers really fast, all in the course of one inning. So I think the Blue Jays' ability to keep creating traffic in order to create those crooked numbers, I think is going to be crucial. So it's going to come down to strike throwing and who's getting ahead and who's staying ahead from a pitching standpoint.
So we rewatched this Yamamoto. I mean, we can keep this on loop. This is so fun to watch. They replayed the first inning at bat against Varsho, who of course was white hot the game before, and then Vladdy, full counts, and then curveball to put him away. I mean, it's amazing the confidence he has in that pitch, especially with everything we talked about with his fastball.
Oh yeah, especially when it's like in those situations to go to what's your third best pitch, and make it look like it's your best pitch. That I think tells you a lot. So you usually don't have guys with an elite breaker, an elite fastball, and an elite off speed or changeup, changeup or split. You don't see guys with 3 of those, and he's one of those guys with 3. So it's you can get you north-south, he can get you front to back, and east-west as well when he wants to with that cutter. He can really, that's an underrated pitch for him too. I think he really does a good job getting that cutter in on the hands of left-handed hitters to give him, a true kind of north-south above the bat misser, and also a ground ball inducing in on the hands 93-mile-an-hour cutter. Right? That's cutters can really extend out. They bridge your other pitches. When a guy because after so many fastballs, it's a moving fastball, basically like a late breaking moving fastball. Mariano Rivera's was so devastating. It's late looked, it's just hard to see in late action. And I think that pitch, it's probably his 4th best pitch, but the utilization is pretty high there as well. So it's true pitchability, any pitch, any count. That doesn't exist in this way. Not that I could see with anybody else in the league quite like this.
Let me ask you, Nick Martinez, when he was here, was talking about Yamamoto throwing the javelin to perfect his mechanics, right? Yeah. Also a fast twitch athlete, naturally talented. Ohtani, we know how talented he is, but clearly what he's getting out of that talent is never before seen. Is there going to be a move potentially to incorporating more Japanese player development this side of the ocean? Because the way they're developing their own style of player, and we've seen what happens when that development meets just the explosiveness of the Western player. Everybody's always trying to find an edge. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, everything they do is not going to translate, and it shouldn't, right? Because you got guys with so much juice in their hands and in their bats that's why would you? Yeah. Why would you? But do some of the things that they do. But clearly, we've seen when the marriage of their player development with upper level tools really connects. You're talking about not just good, but maybe the best pitcher in the game right now.
Sure.
I'd say pretty good case to be the best right-handed pitcher in the game right now, at least, along with Paul Skeens. And then Ohtani, best player we've ever seen. Someone going to try to say, hey, why don't we do these in the Dominican? Some of these techniques. Why don't we use some of these techniques with some of our amateur players and see what happens? I don't know the specifics of what that would look like. I'm just thinking they've got something going on over there, and there's a lot of teams here trying to get an edge on the other one.
They for sure have something going on over there, and I think we're seeing the apex of that right now. And maybe the apex is even further. I don't know. It's to be determined. But they do things a little bit different stylistically, and I think they do things, generally speaking, to generate more with, on average, smaller frames. Ohtani puts that into a different category, but like what I see is a lot of attempting to keep pushing with perhaps more limited physicality, and therefore you focus on inefficiencies in the kinetic chain, for example, which is what I'm seeing here with the javelin stuff that you're talking about. I did some research between weeks just to educate myself on why this has become a thing. And a guy that runs an account called Tread Athletics, which I reference a lot when I'm trying to learn about pitching and just pitching mechanics and pitching strength related things. And I think that we have been researching this pitching and velocity increase stuff for a little while now. We're in this age of a scientific model being applied to pitching. And that also applies to kinetic chain, the way you're transferring weight from your lower half to your upper half, how your arm is synced and on time in order to generate more velocity. And the way I heard him explain it was that Yamamoto went to this because he was having some elbow issues, right? Or that he was having some elbow soreness. So he was trying to find a way to get throwing a baseball. So he's trying to get reps and trying to still go through a throwing motion that didn't quite put strain on the elbow. And it's kind of like when you throw a football and a baseball, they put two. That's why you never see quarterbacks have any sort of. There's a different, being behind the ball and kind of being on the side of it. And there's more of a kind of like a flicking motion in a javelin, but also, and most importantly, is the way that you have to sequence and initiate the chain of events in your lower half, and that put your arm on time. Like if you didn't do all those things well as a javelin thrower, it would come out as like a shitty throw. Like they have to do so many things right with their lower half and sinking into their upper half by the time you release the javelin, that it also lines up with the fact that if you do that on the pitching side of things, more often than not, good things will happen because it means everything's synced up and on time. Your lower half was initiated and your arm didn't lag behind or was in some late position to not be ready for the transfer of force. And then you lose some of the force you generated from the lower half into the upper half because your arm's late or your arm's too early. I think the javelin, and I'm guessing to a certain extent here, but the javelin feels like if you're studying the best overhead athletes or overhead throwers, you could watch a javelin thrower and be like, okay, they have to sequence perfectly in order to get this throw off, right? Then to also be able to manipulate and throw different pitches from the same slot. I'm not saying a javelin pitcher could just go in there and pitch, but I don't have to in my mind stretch to see how there would be positive application there. And with perhaps the Japanese model of development and willing to try more things to get the most out of smaller frames, for example, it's not surprising to me that they're leading the charge in some of this. But I think the way Tim Lincecum threw really different and really weird for a while, but he created and inspired a whole generation of 5'10", 5'11" guys to try to figure out or dissect and reverse engineer how he did that from that frame. And I think Yamamoto is a version of this, an example of this, because there is you look at an Asian style delivery and you look at a traditional rudimentary college delivery, they look different. Stylistically, there's different hip, kind of like the Asian pitcher, cocks the hip a little more. He needs to rely on the transfer from the lower half, those kinds of things. Whereas some college right-hander in the ACC that's got 95, 96 doesn't need to do that or implement that to generate his velo. The crazy things are when both those worlds collide. And that's where I think we've seen Jose Fernandez had almost like an Asian style, Japanese style delivery matched with premium tools. I think with Ohtani, you're seeing this explosion because I don't think it only applies to the pitchers. I think the hitters have their own stylistic difference as well.
Yeah.
Ichiro, obviously, but Ohtani's really putting that on display that works at this level too. And it's like having elite physicality attached to super efficient biomechanical offensive motions and pitching motions that net out the best we've ever seen. So if we're not looking at, I'm a big best idea wins guy. Like, who's got the best ideas out there in terms of player development? You can't put Japan aside, or Asia, because Korea is doing some really interesting things too. So I think it's the Asian leagues have lagged behind in terms of the revolutions that Major League Baseball and stateside baseball goes through. But I think it's fully caught up now to Japanese baseball. They probably still do some things, like Nick says, they still run a lot versus we don't run as much here, at least for pitchers. But I think Japan is here to stay as it relates to baseball. And I think the WBC's proved it. We talk about it a lot on this show, but nowhere or no time has that been most obvious as it is right now, because it's not just Ohtani, right? It's like three guys arguably making the biggest impact. Like, three Japanese players are making the biggest impact to the best team in all of baseball in three different roles, yet all borderline elite. Let's not give Sasaki elite yet.
Right.
He's so young, but the other two guys are comfortably in that category.
And look, in this postseason with the Sasaki elite appearances, I mean, it's not just the results of it. He looks like he's just completely overwhelming guys. So it's just, I don't know. I mean, you don't want to read too much into this, something like the WBC, but they win it a third time. And then in the playoffs of the major leagues, you're seeing these kind of just dominant performances from a smaller pool of players. And you say, how many of their guys that can't make it over here don't make it over here because of a skill deficiency, right? It's always going to be something tool related, right, that may not be lacking some of these systems. I'm just wondering, at some point, I think of the NBA, right? Remember when the game started to get more European, felt like, and now you see everybody play that way,
right?
Including, like, I mean, take a guy like Anthony Edwards, who's your classic American physical player, and he does things that if he did them 20 years ago, you'd be say, this guy's a European, the way he's shooting threes and stuff like that. So
interesting.
I don't know if that's going to happen in baseball. I have no idea. You know people way more than me, but it's just, at some point, if they're dominating our playoffs and they're beating our best players in a tournament setting that everybody takes seriously, and they're signing contracts that we can't even count, at some point you got to say, hey, they're doing something that maybe we could do that's different than what we think is the conventional wisdom.
I mean, the Dodgers clearly think so, or believe that, right? And I think that's, and Ha-Seong Kim is another player on their roster, so another Asian player in there. That's, again, Korea plays baseball as well at a really high level, but I think Japan is clearly in this, having this moment. But I think this has been building for a while now, and I think you see a very small trickle of players overall come and test what they have against. Yes, you see the best of them usually, right? But all sorts of guys in the history of Japan, skill-wise, tools-wise, probably could have played, but there wasn't an acceptance from the player personnel side of things that this is a pool that you're going to go to and you're going to guarantee major league roster spots to. Right. There's been guys that you take chances on, you stuff them in the back end of before they have to get added to the 40, you let them test it out in the minor leagues. But when you're bringing one of these guys over, you're guaranteeing them basically a 26-man roster spot. So he's one of your 13 position players. And so what it tells me is that you're more clearly or more easily able to say, like, okay, this performance here in the MPB has gotten so good that we can conference match this, like a test for the gaps in the play. And I think NPB is better than a AAA level. It may not be totally there on a major league level, but I think it's better than a AAA level. So it's really, really interesting time for global baseball, but for Japanese baseball, because I think this is only going to continue going. Can't wait to see Teruaki Sato, right? Like, we can talk about Murakami and other guys that are going to get posted here. I think there's going to be 3 or 4 guys to kind of make the jump over. But it'll all depend on how frequently NPB wants to be not having their best players in their own league and having them be on the global stage, because NPB is benefiting, maybe not dollar-wise, but from Ohtani, Yamamoto, Sasaki, all these guys. Yeah. Like, there's some tangential benefit there.
No, I was over there. Major League Baseball is huge, and NPB is huge, and it's just kind of,
they just coexist
the whole country. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's the perfect scenario. So, because I've been watching a little bit of the clips from the Japan series, and those are packed houses every night, like fervent baseball running parallel with the World Series. It must be a great time to be in Japan watching baseball. You got the World Series with Ohtani, Yamamoto, Sasaki, and then you have your own postseason going at the same time. So I got to make a trip, man.
No, dude,
make a trip soon.
I was there in April, so they had both seasons rolling, obviously at a different time of the season. But they were everything. I mean, multiple channels, Major League and MPB at all times, fashion-wise, the way people were dressing. I mean, I wasn't even looking for it. I could spot it, obviously, because it was on my mind, but it was everywhere. You did not have to look for it.
And what was the vibe at the game? Like, it's
like a college football game.
Yeah, and you would know something about that.
Yeah, I mean, more so than a college baseball game even, because it was just like the constant chants and things like that. It was a very happy. I thought it would be more serious. It's not as serious. I mean, it is serious, but it's not as
it was lighter.
Very light from a fan perspective. Obviously, the players were very serious, but it wasn't like as reserved as I thought it would be. People were having fun. It was coordinated fun, which is different. It wasn't like just different things happening every corner, but it was definitely a light vibe over there. Last thing I'll say about these Japanese guys, because I mean, we talk about World Baseball all the time on this show. The resilience in the face of injury, I think we should talk about, because Yamamoto came over, big contract right away. There were some injury concerns. You don't know how it was going to go. Sasaki, huge ones, misses basically the whole season. Ohtani, the stuff he's done, forget the stuff he's done 50-50, pitching, hitting. I mean, he's been an MVP caliber player while rehabbing a major injury.
For the second time. Double TJ.
Yeah. And like, he's done it twice, really, where he's played while he's been recovering from an injury.
Yep.
And with all the expectations on, I mean, we talk about all the things he's done that no one else has done. Has anyone, like, I know Bryce Harper came back pretty early, I guess, from TJ, but I mean, this guy was rehabbing and dominating. He had 50-50 while rehabbing. So
pretty ridiculous.
Just I think some of the resilience of these guys, maybe it's just these individuals. It's not a Japanese baseball thing. I don't know enough to say that, but it seems like these guys, yes, there's durability concerns with them, like any player really that throws hard.
That concern is shared by pitchers of all shapes, ethnicities, colors. Like every pitcher in baseball right now is going through an injury epidemic. So even the strongest guys, the Sandy Alcantaras of the world, can still go down with a Tommy John injury. Beautiful deliveries like Yuri Perez can still go down. Totally different body type. So it's, there does. I mean, the level of resilience to be a double Tommy John guy, still come back and be this dominant on the mound as well. All while in the meantime, as you're rehabbing, having a 50-50 season. But I think it's hard not. It's a point in the favor of resiliency for sure. I don't know that that's exclusive or in some, held in some higher percentage by the Japanese player versus other players. I don't think so necessarily, but there are a couple of really good examples of resilience right here for sure.
I'm just saying, you got three guys here on the Dodgers that came over with a lot of expectations and hype, different salaries because Sasaki's situation. But, these are guys that came over with a big weight on them.
For sure.
And you've seen them be challenged physically and come through on the other side. Right. I think now seeing Sasaki probably 3 for 3. Yep. Let's see how he finishes and everything else. But I mean, just the pitch at the level he's pitched to this point. I mean, he didn't play. I mean, it was like a flop season, really, when you think about the expectations. And obviously, no one's going to remember it as a flop season because of what he's done here at the end. So just, again, I don't want to generalize off of 3 players, but I am extremely impressed by just the way these guys operate.
There's an interesting trend in a short amount of time here that's happened in the last 5 years, where I think the impact of Japanese baseball has teleported into another stratosphere in these last 5 years. And I think we're seeing more. What's interesting is seeing Sasaki happen in front of us, because that's like the next wave.
Yep.
So we're seeing the currently elite that's influenced the generation that followed it. And that generation too has outlier guys as well. Ohtani's is in his own category, but that 23-year-old generation has a generational type pitcher in there potentially. And I think that's what jumps out to me. It's always like the 10, 15-year ramifications that these things have, these periods of time of dominance. And like I said it before, it's here to stay.
And you guys, Sato on the horizon.
Yeah.
We'll talk about some of the guys posting as we get, Murakami and some others as we finish up here. But before we let everybody go, I mean, this has been just an incredible season. We'll talk about how it ends next week, maybe. Yeah. We'll see. We'll see, or at least we'll be able to talk about that. And then the offseason, how he tries to get better. But just sitting here watching these two great teams currently tied 1-1, World Baseball Classic on the horizon. A hot stove is going to be cooking before then.
Oh, yeah.
Just the overall state of baseball. I know the numbers are high. How you feeling?
Apex level in the history of the game, maybe. I think it's a big statement, but I don't think it's unwarranted. I think the TV ratings back that up. I think look at the conversation we just had about Japanese baseball.
Yeah.
And you have baseball has one of its marquee franchises in the Los Angeles Dodgers. Baseball wants those kinds of things. It wants that market, that entire West Coast really to be, and the Dodgers have a national, following at this point. They're not just a West Coast dominant team. To then also pull in an entire other country, like the World Series has to be playing in Canada at a higher level than it's ever been, watched before. So you're pulling these three major global countries into the fold, and putting like an elite level product out there. I don't think it's an exciting series, and it's been an exciting postseason. It's not postseason like that's kind of one-sided, dominated by one style of play, or it's just the attendance numbers back that up. The star quality of the actual individual players, they're not lacking in star quality. The Major League Baseball is good. Minor League Baseball is going really well. The Savannah Bananas are a thing. Japanese baseball is going well. Korea,
college baseball,
peaking. Which we should talk about the Vitello thing at some point.
Oh yeah, let's close out.
Didn't touch on that, but and then if you ask any travel ball parent like yourselves, right? Like, does baseball feel like it's dying at the youth levels? No,
business definitely
thriving.
isn't. They're making hands
They're
hand
making
over
money.
fist.
But the interest in the game is there.
100%.
Right. And I bet there are going to be a lot of Canadian kids that grow up wanting to play baseball that weren't thinking about baseball because the Blue Jays are in the World Series. So I don't know. It's hard to overstate it. I think baseball is having a moment. Some of the other sports have created a bit of a lull for them to have a bigger moment even. And then you have the Ohtani stuff really drives a lot of this too. I think Ohtani has really pulled people into being interested in baseball that may not have had, or may have had like casual interest and are now locked in. And that's that global superstar power. Like that's like Jordan, he has to do a lot more to be, I guess, crowned with that. But like that one person player figure being able to pull and magnetize in that way, I think that's special. And I think that with Ohtani, baseball has that. You just didn't know that it was going to be a Japanese superstar, but in a certain way, or in a way, all the better for it, all the more for it. So, but you did mention that college baseball is also, I can say a lot of the same things I'm saying. And some college coaches, they may be, like they're not welcoming the NIL era, too much. So they may have a different take on this, but viewership, business-wise, like popularity of college baseball has never been higher. And the example of that is the San Francisco Giants hiring Tony Vitello to go straight from the University of Tennessee to the manager of San Francisco Giants, right? This is a huge transition. This is a huge hire, but I think it's more understandable if you've been following college baseball closely. That's a premier program in college baseball right now. Performance, recruits, they still produce elite level big leaguers. So Garrett Crochet, University of Tennessee, Liam Doyle went, fourth this year?
Yeah.
So like they're producing elite level players, Christian Moore.
Yeah. Gavin Keelan, who's not, he just got drafted, but the guy that he coached, he gets back now in the Giants organization.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So
and he has got Drew Gilbert. He's playing in the big leagues right now for the Giants. But I think we've seen the graduation of college baseball into far more collegiate bucket. And I think these programs have truly become professionalized.
Yeah.
To the point where I think that there's less of a transfer over. There still is. There's still a big difference between the college game and the big league game. But in player development, the amount of resources that have been thrown at facilities, recruiting, directors of hitting, directors of pitching, the professionalization of baseball has arrived into some of these elite level programs, which Tennessee was. Like they're an elite level college baseball program that in order to draw the kind of players that you need to be producing big league players. I think that's the one thing, like it's not that biggest takeaway here from Tony Vitello for me is that he has overseen the process of producing elite level players at his level and delivering highly polished and advanced college players to their professional programs. I bet that factored in a bunch in this interview process or in the consideration of Buster Posey, who's like in this, I don't know if it's fair to categorize him as like, oh, he's back to a less analytically driven baseball model. So for the Giants to be the ones making this move is interesting, because they're, at least reputationally, they're supposed to be bringing this back to a little more human of a game, right? And like, that's why you hire Buster Posey. But I think that's being prioritized here, because anytime I've seen Vitello speak, anytime I've seen him watch like ABCA things that he's done, different engagements, it's like a pretty magnetic, charismatic dude that has become a really good pitching guy as well. And I think if you're a good pitching guy, like, you need to understand pitching in order to be an effective manager. I think any manager will tell you that. So I think I can see all these ways in which the Giants can justify with a straight face not only hiring this guy, but probably having to pay him at a level, because college coaches are getting paid at a level now.
He was getting paid $3+ million.
Right.
Which is going to be my next question. That before. Yeah, that's more than there were mixed reports about whether he took a pay cut for this job. Tennessee people are saying he did not take a pay cut, right? So say equivalent or more. But
if he did not take a pay cut, then that means he got a really good major league contract.
That's what I was going to ask. It's on the high level,
the
right?
Standard, it feels that the average of an SEC level baseball coach, for example, you stack that next to a bottom third major league manager salary, and it's probably a good amount more. I know that the hitting coaches, for example, like a major league hitting coach and the director of hitting at Texas A&M, for example, like those could be two drastically different financial situations in favor of the college. Like, you could be getting a lot more as a positional coach in college right now than as a positional coach at the big league level, that's never been the case before. You have guys going from major league programs to college, and therefore the switch, there's more pro coaches, I think, involved, or pro caliber coaches involved in college than there's ever been too. So I think I get why you're seeing this now, but he's got I wonder how close this will be to the Brody Van Wagenen situation. The first agent to come in and become a general manager.
Right.
And it didn't go so well, right? So we haven't seen the dam burst in terms of this happening elsewhere. We'll see how this one works, because it'll be scrutinized and it'll be focused on. But I think a lot of college coaches out there are happy that this precedent has now been established.
So let me ask you, I'm playing a little devil's advocate here, but you look at what he did at Tennessee, which he really built the program.
Yeah.
They were not what they were before he got there. He built it up. But so much of that was the recruiting, right? Eventually the portal, which he used as well pretty effectively. We talked about Keelan, Liam Doyle as well.
Part of the game now.
Right. Things that are now the ability to convince guys to go to your school, that's not as much of a factor. I know there's some recruiting, you've talked about that goes on at the major league level, but it's not the same kind of level. So that value that he added that made up a lot of his $3 million+ value to the Tennessee program, now you remove that. The game flow stuff, I mean, we've seen a ton of college games. It's different game, right? It's baseball, but some of the considerations that you have as far as the ability of bats to really, I mean, like, the offensive game is totally different. The pitching is different. The bats being the most obvious difference. So the game flow stuff, he's going to need to learn a little bit. It's going to be a little different. The calculations he makes on what guys can do at the plate and what guys can do on the mound. Is it just the culture building stuff that you're banking on with Buster Posey being a former college star who then was on World Series championship teams, great clubhouses, at least from the outside looking in, that he's saying, all right, the culture part of it that I saw with him at Tennessee, that I get from meeting him, that is what's worth this money? Because I mean, it can't be the other stuff, right? That you don't know.
Yeah, but I think they're showing you how they prioritize that culture establishment, that ability to, even in the portal era, right? The ability to get a mixed group of guys to come and perform for you in that season. Like, that's a skill in and of itself. So there's some human elements there that allow things to come together, especially if you feel you already have a pretty strong infrastructure or system. Like, an important thing to note here is that, yes, a major league manager is like the face of a major league staff, right? So like that, the rest of that staff, the bench coach, the pitching coach, the hitting coach, the quality control coaches, the advanced preparation stuff that you have, like, that one guy doesn't have to be the savant in each of those areas. So you can have, a lot of cases, the bench coach really complements rookie managers with experience.
And does the manager have a say in all those posts? Because like he's coming in from college, he's not going to know all the pro guys. How's that work?
I think the right kind of programs the right kind of organizations don't want to like take that completely out of the manager's, I don't know, hands and just like, hey, we'll hire the rest of your staff. You just come in and do this. I think there's probably some collaboration there. And at the same time, I don't think they're just like, hey, you pick your entire staff. Don't worry, we're not going to ask you any questions. I don't think it works that way either. So I think it's a true collaboration. And I think if you're Vitello, depends what kind of leverage you have in terms of like what you would need for them to do in order for this job to be appealing to you. Because he was in a comfortable spot. He didn't have to leave. So there's a bit of you have to sell this person. If you believe it's the right person, you have to sell them on the opportunity. So does that person need X person in this role to come with me? And then maybe you as an organization, you find a way to acquiesce or to accommodate. But sometimes vice versa. They could be like, hey, we have these 3, 4, 5 people. We love them. They're on our staff. We love them. We want to keep them. So like, and maybe they determine he of all the candidates was best to coexist or collaborate with the pre-existing staff. I don't know the answers to those questions. There's no inside information here, but it does seem that they are prioritizing the human connecting ability, right? Which I think is tied a little bit to your recruiting stuff, right? I think there's some very human persuasion, communication, just things, maybe softer skills that show up. I think those things show up a lot in the manager's seat. Relatability to players, ability to communicate, empathize, and not just players, staff, right? Like I think we look at a lot of like players, but the staff that supports the players can be not only equally important, but can also in the other direction. When you lose the staff, you could lose the players and vice versa. So like you need somebody that's a true, so they get called skipper, right? Somebody, they don't have to be the expert in any one area. They don't have to be the game savant, philosophy savant to positively impact. Like look at the Jack McKeon stuff.
Yeah.
Right? Like he was able to come in and kind of charisma style his way or gut feel. He was the right guy for that collection of players. And that happens too. So the manager isn't one thing. And I think it's an interesting direction for them to go. And I think he must have blown him away in the interview. That's what I think.
Last thing before I let you go, because we're going long, but it's World Series week. The fact that Buster Posey played not just college baseball, but big time college baseball.
Yeah.
You played college ball, Ivy League, so it's a little different than SEC and ACC.
Yeah, not ACC, SEC, yeah.
But being around people that played at that level, that were in a position to evaluate players, in this case, managers, do you think they view college baseball a little differently than someone who maybe was just, pro all the way, or one of these guys that came in from outside the game into the game, like someone who actually played in those college World Series environments saying, listen, I have more faith. And Posey's played certainly at the highest levels of major league. So he's no stranger to that game as a player. But do you think that affected this decision? And have you seen that with players that have gone through college baseball?
Interesting. I hadn't thought about that, but I think if you ask Buster Posey if his collegiate experience was overall a net positive to his baseball experience, he'd probably answer with a resounding yes. And you probably look at those years as very formative for him. It's where he learned how to catch. It's where I hadn't really thought about it that way, but it's hard to think otherwise. I think if he is probably best positioned to comment on the value of that a collegiate coach can make on a player, right? Because that's really what you're trying to accomplish. Like, how can this human being net out positive value and cohesion across our clubhouse with a younger era of players than we're used to? We were just talking about Trey Savage. We're talking about so many guys making the quick transfer over, like playing in college last year to playing in the big leagues in the World Series this year. And so I think that's telling you that the game is at least positioned to look a little younger. And so they're making a bet that this person connects with young people, young men, and can develop young baseball players. And I think that that's why, at the same time, like, what will really be interesting is his ability to get buy-in from Rafael Devers, from Willie Adames, from like that. That I think will move the needle the most, and is the most. I think big league players will be a little bit. Baseball's not really quick to change. Be like, accept anything that's new. They're usually pretty salty, sarcastic about like, I think that there will be a lot of that thrown around, but that's where I think the human elements come into play. Like you can put all that to bed with the impression you make on a player in your first week in spring training in the clubhouse, right? If you connect with them on a human level, because sometimes the guy with 50 years of baseball experience misses that connection with you despite the 50 years. So I think his ability to get buy-in from the veterans and, high ticket free agent players and things like that, I think that's the part where he's not operating from this base of recent experience. So that's the biggest question mark. It's the biggest unknown, it seems to me. But they seem to feel comfortable. And again, this is a major league staff where you can have complementary people that support that role without that person having to do all the things that he doesn't have experience in. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We'll be following that as well as, of course, the World Series, followed immediately by the offseason, the World Baseball Classic, and then right back into spring training. There is no offseason here on El Big League Show. So please like and subscribe to the show. We'll see you next week.